So I should mention this. It's very disappointing. But, I've been talking a lot about Reform UK, replacing the Conservative Party in the UK. And then Reform UK started kicking out people for being spicy, for saying things that are a bit offensive. And now they've done it again. It's the fourth MP candidate they've kicked out on the basis of hope not hate, which is like the ADL, accusing them of some bullshit. In this case, even arguably, it was for him questioning the other expulsions in a private meeting, according to the way he puts it. And I mean, look at this man. Look at this man. I mean, this is almost the equivalent of like an American candidate, top naked, American flag out, and a massive like machine gun in a mobility trolley. But this is the guy they kicked out, and there's a reason given here. So this guy gives an account from, like, quoted from the guy who was kicked out, and this is what he says happened. Quote, I've been deselected as a Reform UK candidate for Lewes. I followed a Zoom meeting last night, which I was requested to join, hosted by John Kelly, one of Reform's area managers for the North, by my area manager, Robert Stevens. It was just a meeting to be lectured about the internet portal that they use with about 20 other Reform UK PPCs. What PPC is exactly? Little putty candidate. Yeah, thank you, Wes. At the end, during questions, I asked, can you explain why Reform is dancing to the tune of hate not hope, he says specifically, and deselecting decent candidates? This flustered John Kelly, and he said that they weren't dancing to the tune of hope not hate, but that Reform candidates need to abide by standards, and saying that, I paraphrase, quote, I would like to bugger black babies is grounds for deselection. I replied that that wasn't what people were being deselected for, but, for example, supporting Tommy Robinson. He then said that Tommy Robinson wouldn't be welcome in the party. I replied that I wasn't suggesting that he should be in the party, but that candidates were deselected after Hope Not Hate outed them as Tommy Robinson supporters. He said that this wasn't something to discuss here, and I replied perhaps we need to have an open discussion amongst members about this rather than private calls. Meeting came to an end. This morning, I found myself locked out of their accounts, and eventually I got this email with this in it. Quote, too many of your social media posts attack Muslims and Muslim politicians in a way that we could neither condone nor defend, and which we find unacceptable for a parliamentary candidate. This wasn't the real reason. They were angry that I brought up that they were dancing to the tune of Hope Not Hate in front of other candidates. Reform UK really are the managerial containment party where there is no free discussion amongst members, and they're afraid of offending Islamists, which, seeing as it's the only matter of time before the Islam UK party is approved by the Electoral Commission, perhaps Reform UK could consider forming an electoral pact with them. Spicy and strongly said. Now, I want to say something on this quickly. Before this, I was of the opinion that, wow, I'm disappointed that Reform UK kicked those 3 people out. That's really bad. But they're still better than the Conservatives, and I still don't see any reason to think that they are clearly containment. But this, if this is even mostly true, I don't know, guys. It's getting harder and harder to say, look, they're still better than the Conservatives. It's getting harder and harder to say that. It's a real shame, because they really have a chance. But it seems quite possible that they're intended to split the vote of the Tories and then collapse, pretending to be the party that's there to support what is in fact the majority opinion of the UK right. It's this sort of like, our opponent are f***ing around. And they can't keep getting away with it forever, but it looks like they might have done this time, unfortunately. Now, given this, would I still prefer the blatant containment neolib party of the Tories, or the somewhat subtle containment maybe party of Reform UK? I'd still prefer Reform UK. If it came down to voting for one or the other today, it would be Reform UK. But it's getting really hard. It's getting really hard to say that they're going to actually help, and that they're not going to be a straight up like palette shift for the Conservatives and nothing else. I still think the Conservative Party itself should be punished for its various failures, but I don't know if Reform UK will be much better at this point. It's really disappointing.
Yeah, it's not a really good sign when the cyberpunk version of your future is starting to sound better than the real world one.
So I can see an angle for, look, they need to get to the normies, and the normies won't accept the, like, racismus or even the appearance of racism, or they need to protect themselves from the press in order to have a chance to defeat the Conservatives. And maybe after they defeated the Conservatives, after the Conservatives are no more, Reform UK can then start stretching out towards what it really believes. Like, that narrative is plausible, but it's kind of a stretch. It's kind of cope to think that that's likely. I wish it were true, but I don't think it is. It is kind of looking more and more like it's containment, or that it really is just a different color of neolibs. I think it is still better. Like, no matter how many based people they kick out, it probably is still better than the Tories, but I don't know. Like, it's getting closer and closer to level with the Tories. And to the point that the only argument I would make to support them is, yeah, but the Tories themselves should be punished. We'll punish reform later if that's our only option. Oh, it's such a disappointment. All this, attempts to be optimistic and such, but it is difficult with stuff like this. Now, I will certainly address it, chat. I'm not blindly optimistic, and I wanted to be for this. And hey, the optimism isn't always right. I think it's still worth doing, though. So yeah, I would still vote for them, for given the choice. But given this, I'm not sure they're even going to overtake the Tories. Because I think they're wrong. If they think that they have to try to appeal to the normies by smoothing their rough edges, no, I think the rough edges are what everyone's demanding at this point. I think people are quite willing to accept, at least right-wingers, are quite willing to accept some rough edges if those rough edges are along the lines of strength. Now, all of this said, there are a couple of alternatives which will never be viable this election season, obviously, but maybe worth looking into in the future. Britain First, so let's give a voice to what they're saying. Britain First, Mayor and Assembly. Dear voter, London is fast becoming a third world cesspit where crime is rampant and radical Islamist extremists dominate the streets. Homelessness has increased along with food bank usage, but spending on woke nonsense has exploded. The reality is we are running out of time to save and restore our beloved capital city. What was once a safe and cohesive city has been transformed into a crime-ridden, unrecognisable disaster zone. If you want change, vote for it. On Thursday, 2nd of May, vote Britain First, no to immigration. Nick Scanlon, candidate Mayor of London. Yeah, sounds pretty good. Some of their major points here are abolish ULEZ and C charge. Good. Eradicate knife crime. Obvious. I want you to tell me how you're going to do it, but good. Put local people first. Again, obvious, easy to say. I want to know how you're going to do it, but also good. Housing for local families. Same again. Protect our monuments. Good. Deport illegal immigrants. Good. I would put that higher up, to be honest. House homeless veterans, good. Close down migrant hotels, good. Reject corrupt politicians, good, but also everyone would say that. Stop mass immigration, good, but sort of a duplicate. Depoliticize the Met, also good. So very good things. And so go on, Wes.
No, I was going to say, bring that second one back up real fast.
This one?
Yeah. So you know how you put local people first and create housing for local families and protect monuments and house homeless veterans.
Mm.
And you know what the best way to do that is?
Mm.
Deport immigrants. You deport the illegal immigrants, and then all of that stuff will go down or disappear and become much easier.
Yep.
If you no longer have a millions of illegal immigrants in your city, a lot of these problems will go away. And I shouldn't say eradicate knife crime, because that's not necessarily part of that case. You eradicate knife crime, quote unquote. First of all, eradication is impossible because you're always going to have violence as long as two humans are living near each other. But how you lower it is you allow your citizens to arm and defend themselves. You lower it is an objective truth that if you want lower crime, you have an armed and trained populace. That's the only way, because again, the police are there to react to crimes. They are there after the fact. And in very small instances, are they there to prevent crimes. How you largely prevent crimes is you have an armed and trained citizenry. Now, I'm not saying mandatory military. No, you just have a culture of, well, like several states here in the U.S. where it's just like, you're around guns. You have you are well trained in firearms, and not just firearms, but just the ability to defend yourself. And also, you stop criminalizing people who are trying to defend themselves, because that is one of the most blatant demoralization tactics that has ever existed.
Yeah. I would say that arming citizens with guns, for example, I don't think would be necessary. I think it would probably, it would certainly help in a lot of contexts, but I don't think it'd be necessary to solve this. I think, to build on what you said, a lot of these problems are quite easy to solve in principle. That if you start deporting routine criminals, illegal immigrants, and various other groups who it's right and reasonable to deport, the problem is like 75% gone at that point, and the rest of it's mostly residual and will resolve itself after a while. Like, it's not going to take much if you have people with the will and the power in positions to fix these things. We just need that. We just need people we can trust in power, and we can fix these things quite easily.
But anyway, but unfortunately, and again, this is my personal bias talking, and I just want to make my bias very well aware, and that bias is, in a nutshell, it is voter fraud until proven otherwise. I find it like there is some voter fraud probably going on in London.
There very well might be. Paper ballots do not eliminate voter fraud. They just make it more difficult.
Yeah. And that voter fraud could be ballot harvesting. It could be, manipulation. It could be like they could be doing the things that a lot of cities are doing in the States, which is just influxing people and just going, okay,
yeah,
make sure you here. Yeah, and when they influx these people, they give them, I have seen this happen here in Seattle, and I know people who have seen it happen in California. They influx these people, and they give them a cell phone, they give them a sandwich, a bottle of water, and a voter registration card, and they go, while you're here, eat the sandwich, drink the water, fill out the registration card, and just leave it with the person here at the homeless center. And next thing you know, you've got 10, 20, 30, 50,000 votes coming out of that one homeless center. And I'm sure every single one of them are legitimate.
Yeah.
If you wonder why cities like LA, New York, Seattle, Chicago, Detroit are rife with homeless, that's why. Because every single one of those people are a vote. Every single one.
Yeah. I believe that the majority, possibly a significant majority, of the British public, not just those that are here, but those that are actually British, have been voting in the direction of policies that we would personally advocate for up to 10 years now. They just haven't really had the options to pick like people that will actually do it. And even I think sometimes when there has been some intent to do it, they've been stopped by other institutions and forces that prevent it. So in terms of public will, we have that, I think, available, just like in the US. It's just about now making its way into the institution. I think the US has a big advantage here because the US is a sort of more volatile and fast-moving political system, or just system in general. And you can just put someone straight into this like almost dictatorial position from the ground floor, no matter who they are. In the UK, it moves slower, and a system that moves slower, in theory is safer because it takes longer for bad ideas to propagate, just like it takes longer for good ideas to propagate. But I think the specific way that our opponents propagated their ideas in instances of normalization propaganda and institutional capture defeats that. It gets around that slow system. So we have a slower path to run potentially in the UK than in the US. But it's still very much doable. And if it's not Reform UK, we'll find another party. Because we have already demonstrated how much damage we can do to the Tories when they don't do what we want. That party might not exist in 5 years.
Hopefully.